This morning, you lost it. Maybe the leash yanked hard. Maybe your voice went somewhere you didn't intend. You heard yourself, the sharp edge in it, and the dog flinched. Not dramatically, just slightly. That micro recoil that lands in your chest like a stone. And then, 20 minutes later, maybe less, that same dog walked over and pressed their nose into your hand. Not cautiously, not with that sideways, uncertain approach. Fully, weight behind it. And they looked at you. Here's what I want to ask you, and I want you to sit with it. Was that forgiveness, or was something else entirely happening underneath that soft, unconditional return? Hold on to that eye contact moment. We're coming back to it. There's a story most dog owners tell themselves, and honestly, it's a beautiful one. Dogs possess some elevated, almost spiritual capacity for forgiveness, something humans have mostly lost. We carry grudges for years. Our dogs, apparently, don't carry them past the next meal. It's a comforting narrative, especially when you're the one holding the guilt. But here's the first crack in that story. Forgiveness, actual forgiveness, is a cognitively demanding act. It requires holding a grievance, weighing it consciously, and choosing to release it. The question worth asking is whether dogs are even capable of that sequence at all. They're not, and that changes everything. True forgiveness requires episodic memory with emotional tagging, the ability to replay a negative event, attach a feeling to it, and then override that feeling through deliberate choice. Dr. Alexandra Horowitz's research on dog cognition at Barnard College shows dogs do have episodic-like memory. They remember that something happened, but they don't engage in sustained emotional rumination about it the way humans do. So here's the self-correction I have to make. When people say unconditional love, they mean love overriding resentment. But there was never resentment to override. That changes what you're actually witnessing when your dog comes back to you. It's not forgiveness, it's the absence of a grievance ever forming, and there's a measurable timeline to this. Canine stress research shows cortisol elevation from a negative interaction peaks within minutes, and then begins declining rapidly once the threat stimulus is gone. A 2021 study published in Applied Animal Behavior Science documented post-conflict behavior in dogs, showing affiliative approaches to owners occurring within an average of 11 to 18 minutes following stressful interactions. That return isn't spiritual, it's autonomic. It follows a documented curve, and it's happening whether the dog loves you or not. But here's what most owners miss in that moment. The dog comes back, yes, but watch the details of how they come back. The lip lick before the approach, the head carried just slightly lower than neutral. The tail moving but below the spine line, not above it. These are appeasement signals, not joyful reunion behaviors. The dog isn't returning in peace. They're returning in conflict resolution mode, a profoundly different neurological state that, to an untrained eye, looks completely identical to happiness. This is the distinction that matters: appeasement versus genuine affiliation. Appeasement is a stress-driven approach. The dog moves toward you to neutralize a perceived threat in the social environment. Genuine affiliation is relaxed, voluntary proximity seeking, with no social pressure driving it. A dog returning after being yelled at, body slightly tucked, gaze slightly averted, is not the same behavioral event as that same dog choosing to sleep at your feet on a quiet Sunday afternoon. One is social survival strategy. One is attachment behavior. Both look like love. Only one actually is. Now add the conditioning layer, because this is where it gets uncomfortable. In most households, negative interactions are eventually followed by the owner's guilt-driven affection, the apologetic cuddle, the treat, the softer voice that comes 20 minutes later. Your dog learns, without you meaning to teach it, that post-conflict approaches are reliably rewarded. If you have a golden retriever, this loop runs almost automatically. They'll return so fast you'll mistake it for forgiveness. A chow will make you wait. An Australian cattle dog will file it somewhere in their behavioral ledger that you won't enjoy later. You train the return. You just didn't know you were doing it. And then there are the dogs that don't come back quickly. Owners read this as moodiness, spite, stubbornness. The real explanation is less dramatic and more serious. Dogs with trauma histories or chronic stress loads have elevated baseline cortisol that slows their affiliative recovery. The dog isn't holding a grudge. Their nervous system is simply taking longer to return to baseline. Spite requires planning. What you're seeing is a damaged stress response system, not a personality flaw. Here's the part nobody talks about. Your guilt post-conflict is physiologically loud. Cortisol mirroring research shows that a dysregulated, emotionally flooded owner re-entering a dog's space doesn't signal safety, it signals continued instability. The dog that forgave you is now actively managing your emotional state rather than recovering from the conflict. Your apology, neurologically, may be extending the stress event rather than ending it. Set down a treat bag. Look into the camera. The behavioral science says dogs don't hold grudges because they live in the present moment. Right. Except they remember which neighbor has the aggressive dog, which vet's office smells like cortisol and fear, and exactly which cabinet the treats live in after 2 years in your house. Selective amnesia isn't a spiritual gift. It's a fundamental misread of how canine memory actually works. They don't forget, they just don't narrate. That's the actual structural difference. Humans build grievances through narrative. Who did what it means, what it says about the relationship going forward. Dogs lack the self-referential processing required to construct that kind of story. They can remember a threatening stimulus. They cannot build meaning around it. No story, nothing to forgive. I could walk you through the exact hypothalamic pituitary pathway involved here, but simply put, physical contact triggers bilateral oxytocin release in both dog and owner, measurably accelerating the dog's autonomic recovery from stress. The dog pressing into your hand after a conflict isn't forgiving you. They are co-regulating back to baseline and pulling you there alongside them. That's not a small thing. So what do you actually do after you've lost your temper? First, regulate yourself before re-entering their space. Your breathing, your posture, your dog is reading your nervous system state, not your intentions. Slow down first. Second, don't flood them with apologetic affection immediately. Give it 10 to 15 minutes of calm, low-stimulation presence before initiating contact. Third, let them initiate the physical reunion. Don't reach for them. Fourth, and this one matters, hold up your phone. If you're losing your temper with your dog regularly, record what happened 60 seconds before the incident. The trigger is almost never what you think it is. The pattern reveals itself fast. Back to the dog that made eye contact. Direct eye contact in dogs is a high trust signal. It is not performed casually towards someone perceived as a genuine threat. That dog returning your gaze after a moment of anger was not forgiving you. They were recategorizing you. You were briefly reclassified, not permanently, not vindictively, just temporarily filed as unpredictable. The eye contact is the moment of reinstatement. You were reclassified as safe again. That's not less profound than forgiveness. It might actually be more. Think of one specific moment you weren't proud of with your dog, then think about exactly how they came back afterward. What did they do first? Drop it in the comments, not to confess, because the specific detail of how they returned tells you more about their nervous system than any personality quiz ever will.